I first want to start off with this video with I get asked every now and then, why am I wearing this potato sack, this yellow potato sack with this Jude star on it. Well, contrary to Christian popular belief, it is not the star of Rephan or what they claim it is. In fact, the Christian star is the star of Rephan or Remphan, which would be the 8-pointed star, the Star of Babylon. This is not the Star of Babylon. This star here is what the Christians imposed upon the Jews, and also the Muslims did, to single them out as second and third class citizens. In some countries, they were not considered citizens at all. Primary example of that was jolly old England. I wear this because the people who suffered the indignities of being a Jew are my brothers. They are my mishpacha. So I wear it when I do these YouTube videos. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I point blank asked one of my neighbors, who happens to be a JW. I asked him, are you going to come along with me and the Jews to Israel after they start, the nations start nuking each other? And he looks at me funny. He says, no, like as if he's staying right here. And then he said something that I find really strange and weird. No man can pinpoint, no man can pinpoint. What in the world does that mean? I have no idea. But he's a JW, and he follows the doctrine of the JWs. Let me show you what the leaders of the JWs think they pinpointed. So I was wondering what in the world would possess him not to want to go, and I pointed out him in Yoel 2, where it talks about in Jerusalem. And Zion and Jerusalem will be salvation. That's where it's going to be, which means it's not going to be anywhere else. I have told him that. And for a long time, I have made the claim, and I still make the claim today, that many of these men know better. Even my own uncle, whose name was Jacob, knew better. But for the sake of his wife, for the sake of his family, and for the sake of the name among his brethren, he remained an Amishman. No different than my own grandfather, Israel Zook. Did the same thing. His name tells the world that he's a Jew, but he claims to be a Christian. So the JWs think that just because they use the name Jehovah, and they use it in a very sloppy way with a J sound, there's no J sound in the Hebrew language, they think that that somehow makes the difference. Let's get started. So in this particular article, this is jw.org, and the sealing of the Israel of God. And of course, as a Bible scholar, I knew right away where they got that from, that Israel of God. Many Christian religions love to use that against Israel, the Jews. And I'll show you where they get it from. And I'll show you how they misuse the words of Paul. This is in Galatians 6 and verse 16. Now, Paul, although he was bilingual, in those days, Romans, he might have been trilingual. Roman, which in those days spoke a version of Greek and Hebrew. And of course, he would be versed in Aramaic too, because Aramaic is Hebrew. So he says to the congregation of the Galatians, now let me show you what New International Version said. Peace and mercy to all who follow this rule, to the Israel of God. Well, we know it's a mistranslation because they use this word, God. The Galatians were Greek, so he used the word theos, or he may have taught them, and I think he did, to use the word Elohim instead. After all, I don't think, I believe that Paul would have been aware enough to do so. Now, let's look in the King James Bible, which you English speakers, you use. And it is very clear what he is saying here. And as many as walk according to this rule, peace and mercy be unto them, and upon the Israel of Elohim. What? Oh, but you Christians chose to twist the words of Paul. Now, another scripture that they love to twist is Romans 9 and verse 6. It is not as though Elohim's word has failed, for not all who are descended from Israel are Israel currently. What did he mean by that? The lost 10 tribes are not Israel. They received a bill of divorcement, and when they did, they were no longer Israel. Yet, it is written in Jeremiah 31 verses 31 through 34 that he's going to give a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah. That means the 10 tribes and with the house of Yehudah. The 10 tribes, the lost ones who are currently not Israel, shall become Israel again. And in these two instances, Christians have twisted the words of, and let me warn you what's going to happen to those who twist the words of Paul. Let's see here. Who rest. Come on, search, you can do better than that. 2 Peter 3:16. Actually, 2 Cephas 3:16. Cephas, Simon Cephas, was never named Peter. Peter is in honor of Deuspiter, which is Satan. The Latins, the Romans, and the English put the name Peter on him. Yehoshua never gave him the name Peter. It is Cephas. Now, from Concordance, and here's what he says about those who twist Peter's words. And the account that the long-suffering of our Moshiach, salvation, just as our beloved brother, Paul, also according to the wisdom given unto him, has written also to you. Also, in every epistle, in every letter, speaking in them of these very things, which are consistently to certain people hard to understand, demonstrative this, in other words, and it is then demonstrated by this, that they are unlearned, and they are unstable, unsettled. They wrestle. They twist. They twist the words of Paul, just like they do all the other scriptures. And they do so to their own destruction. So this particular video goes out to the JWs as a warning. This is why you're not going to be ready, because you twisted the words of Paul just like the other Christians did, and you've done so to your own destruction. And let me remind you, JWs, was it not you in Europe who sat next to the Jews in concentration camps? Wasn't it you who suffered with them? And yet you still hold the doctrine of the enemy? Now, I have chastised the Amish and Mennonite for this too. But I'm coming after you, you JWs. Sealing the Israel of God. You see what they did? This title is a perversion of the words of Paul. And Paul and Peter said, those who twist Paul's words, they also twist the rest of the scriptures, and they do so to their own destruction. So I asked the JWs, wasn't the Holocaust enough for you? What do you mean, Henry? What do you mean? Let's scroll way down here. They're talking about the 144,000, and they're trying to say who the 144,000 are. Now, we go down here. how many are sealed? This is going to be shocking to those of you who are listening when you see and read this and you hear this. First of all, the Moshiach's name never was Jesus. As I have pointed out many, many times, let's go right here. The name is not Jesus, it is not Iesous. Never was, never will be. Watch the previous video. It is Yehoshua. You see, blessed is he who comes in the name of Jehovah. Bears a lot more significance than you Christians realize. It's not the name of the Lord. It's not blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. It's blessed is he who comes in the name of Jehovah. Literally. Yehoshua means Jehovah's salvation, or Jehovah is salvation. He comes in the name of Jehovah, literally. But you don't believe that. In fact, you've rejected that name. And you, JWs, you have rejected that name too. Yehoshua. You know better. You have the ability that your forefathers did not have 70 some years ago. You have all of this information available at your fingertips, but you are too lazy. You are stuck in the false narrative. And quite frankly, you have been enchanted by the accoutrements of this world. Easy traveling, air conditioning, running water, electricity. Ambient heat and cooling. Well, all of that is going to be taken away from this world like it has been taken away from Ukraine last night. It's going to be taken away. All of it. And then what will you be left with? Yehoshua said those in line for the sealing, have no fear, little flock, because your Abba has approved of giving you the kingdom. No. These that he was speaking to, the apostles and the little flock, they are dead and waiting for their reward. The 144,000 are of the living. And it's going to say who they are of. Now listen, now watch this. Watch this. Other scriptures such as Revelation 6 and verse 11 and Romans 11:25 indicate that the number of this flock is indeed limited and in fact predetermined. Excuse me? Romans 11:25 says this, I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you, the Romans, should be wise in your own conceit, that Israel is partly blinded until the time of the Gentiles has peaked and at its end. And you know what it says in the next verse? And so all Israel shall be saved. All Israel shall be saved. And they said, this little flock is indeed limited. Limited? Are you serious? Let's go and look and see how limited this little flock is. Innumerable. Oh, hold on. Let me just 144,000. I got fat fingers. All right. Limited, he says. Paul says in the very next verse that the JWs say, all Israel shall be saved. But I'm going to show you that they changed the definition of Israel. But see, the Christians might have changed the definition of Israel, but Jehovah and Yehoshua never changed the definition of Israel. So, right here, and as I pointed out many, many times, it says, and I heard the number of them which were sealed, and them which were sealed was 144,000, that are out of every tribe, including Dan. And I showed you many times how the translators did a typo, excluding Dan, and they literally put Manasseh in twice, or Manash in twice. They did. Because when you count the 12 tribes, you have to count Joseph, or Yosef. And Yosef is Ephraim and Manash. So what they did right here, you'll see they put the tribe of Manash in there, and then they put the tribe of Joseph in there. That's literally adding Manash twice. It says all of the tribes of Israel, every tribe of Israel. That means Dan, and that means instead of Manash here, it should be Dan, and Manash is in here, where it's Ephraim and Manash make up Joseph. Okay? But you notice when we read this, how many are sealed? Watch this. Okay? And nowhere in this article does it mention what happens after. Okay. With them, with this, along with this, right here, with, not after, but with, among a great multitude, which no man could number. So the JWs, they say, a limited little flock, and yet, right here, just right after, it says, an innumerable multitude with them that were taken out of the Gentiles and the kindreds and the peoples and the tongues. Well, who was scattered among the Gentiles, the kindreds and the peoples and the tongues? All Israel was scattered, but all Israel is going to be gathered back. You see, that does not fit the false narrative of Christianity. Because Christianity prefers, rather than, as explained in Romans 11, rather being grafted into one of the branches of Israel through Yehoshua, they wanted to replace Israel and replace the Moshiach of Israel with Jesus. And so he says, why could the reference to the 12 tribes not apply to literal fleshly Israel? Could this not be a reference to literal fleshly Israel? And they say no. That's a lie. Not only that, it is one thing to have a discussion concerning Jonah's words in the book of Revelation. But it is quite another to say no to what Jonah says yes to. He says, out of each of the tribes of Israel, 12,000 were sealed. Sealed for what? What duty were they sealed for? Well, I'm going to take a guess. In the Levitical priesthood, you had Aaron as the high priest. You had the sons of Aaron who did the duties of the priesthood. And then you had the Levites who were under them. The kingdom of Israel is going to be a kingdom of priests. So the Israelites, the innumerable multitude, Israelites that are gathered in as promised in the words of the prophets, as promised in Isaiah, so many times, as promised in Jeremiah, so many times, as promised in Ezekiel, so many times, as promised in Joel, as promised in all the prophets. This innumerable multitude, they are going to be a kingdom of priests to the Gentiles. And the 144,000, my guess is they do the work of the sons of Aaron. What I'm saying is the Aaronic priesthood was Levitical, so it is no longer, since this is a priesthood after the order of Melchizedek, Yehoshua's priesthood is. The sons of Levi will remain as priests along with all of the other tribes to the Gentiles, while the 144,000 will likely be priests to Israel under the order of Melchizedek. That's what I think. Okay? But to sit here and say, could this not be a reference to literal fleshly Israel? No. He says no. For Revelation 7:4 verse 8 diverges from the usual tribal listing. How does it do that? We're right here. Oh, this is where it mentions, and behold, I saw a great multitude. And so what this guy is saying, all of a sudden he changes from, they're using verse 8 to claim that this is not Israel. But apparently they did not read the book of Daniel. Apparently they didn't read the words of the prophets at all. Because they shall neither hunger no more nor thirst any more, neither shall the sun light on them nor any heat. Watch this. Neither shall the sun light on them. All right. I'm going to look it up in Google. Okay. That should be in another, hold on. Let's go to Bible Hub and see if we can find another verse in the prophets. Wow. Oh, I got to copy and paste. Oh. Oh, look at this. Neither shall they hunger or thirst, or with a scorching heat or sun beat down on them. That was taken out of Isaiah. Come on, people. 49 and verse 10. So who is this? Watch. So, this is a prophecy. Jehovah told this to Isaiah and told him to write it down. Listen, you coastlands, to me, you people living far away. Jehovah, not God, has called me from the Garden of Eden. Is that what it says? Nope. Has called me from the womb. From the bowels of my mother, he first made mention of my name. And it was Yehoshua, not Jesus. He made my mouth like a sharp sword, and in the shadow of his hand, he showed me to the whole world from the beginning. Is that what it says? Nope. He has what? What is that word? The word is chabah, which means withdrawn, hidden. Not even Michael and Gabriel knew. He was hidden. And as a polished shaft, like a polished arrow in his quiver, he has hidden me. You are my servant of Israel, in whom to glorify Israel. I said, I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for nothing and in vain. But judgment will come from Jehovah, and repayment from Elohim. And repayment, justice did come on the Jews, but it hasn't come on the Gentiles yet. Now, this is what Jehovah says, who formed you from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back again. You folks, you want to quote the prophets, you had better be ready to listen to me fire back with those same scriptures. To bring his servant Jacob back and return. Israel will be gathered, not gathered. Israel will be gathered. Asaph means gathered. It does not mean not gathered. And will be glorious, not burdensome, glorified. Israel will be glorified in Jehovah, Elohim, the Mighty One. And Jehovah said, it is but a light thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob. Raise up the tribes of Jacob to return, to watch over them, to watch over what? Israel. I will also give you for a light to the Gentiles. So, it says that you might be my salvation unto the ends of the earth. Now, in an acceptable time, says Jehovah, I will hear you, I will testify. And in the day of salvation, what is the day of salvation when the time of the Gentiles comes to the end? Romans 11:25 and 26. I will help and preserve you, and give you for a covenant to the people to establish the arets of Israel, to inherit the desolate heritages, that I may say to the prisoners who are not allowed to return home, go back, and those that live in darkness, the lands of the Gentiles, to show themselves, and they shall feed in the ways, and their pastures shall be in high places. This is the restoration of Israel, shall not hunger, nor thirst, neither heat nor sun shall smite them, for he shall have mercy upon them, and lead them by the springs of water, and he shall guide them. It says that your children, talking about Zion. Zion says, Jehovah has forsaken me, and Adonai has forgotten. Can a woman forget her sucking child? But this is what you Christians claim. You claim that there is another Israel, a different Israel. And I showed you that this Revelation 7 is in reference to neither shall they thirst anymore, neither shall the sun light them nor any heat. It is absolutely referring to Isaiah 49, the restoration of Israel. Because scattered power of the I think it was in, is it Daniel 11? Hold on, let me go look. Daniel. Talk about shattering the power of the holy people. And the word shatter means to scatter. So if they're scattered into all the nations, let's do it like this here. Israel scattered among the nations. King James Version. Let's look at it. It's Joel 3. Of course it is. And it's in Ezekiel 36. Of course it is. Now, we'll go to Ezekiel 46. I scattered them among the Gentiles, and they were dispersed throughout the countries. According to their way and according to their doings, I judged them. And when they entered into the land of the heathen, where they went, they profaned my holy name. When they said unto them, these are the people of Jehovah, are gone out from his land. But I had pity for my holy name, which the house of Israel has profaned among the Gentiles where they went. Therefore, say to the house of Israel, thus says Jehovah Elohim, I don't do this for your sakes, O house of Israel, but for my holy name's sake, which you have profaned among the Gentiles. I will sanctify my great name, which was profaned among the Gentiles, which you have profaned in the midst of them, and the Gentiles shall know Jehovah, says Jehovah Elohim, when I shall sanctify it in you before their eyes. I will take you from out among the heathen, and I will gather you out of all the countries, and will bring you into your own land, and Bamo, that is, these great multitude, which were scattered among all the Gentiles, kindreds, and tongues. Romans 11, verse 25 through 26. For I would not, you Roman brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that partial blindness happen unto Israel, until the time of the Gentiles comes to the full, peaks, ends. And so all Israel, not a limited amount, all Israel shall be saved. Not just 144,000. The 144,000 are sealed for a specific duty. They are to serve as priests, in my opinion, to the innumerable multitude of all of the tribes of Israel. And you can read in Romans 11 that a Gentile must be grafted into the branches or one of the branches of Israel to be saved. All right? So, just destroyed this false doctrine of the JWs, which is the same doctrine that the rest of Christianity teaches. All right? So they're saying that although the natural Jews and Jewish proselytes were given the first opportunity to be chosen for spiritual, in no way in the world does it say spiritual Israel. That's not what it says. It is written that they rejected that stone. And if you know the reason why they rejected him, because they thought he was going to come and save them from the Romans. But if they would have bothered to read the scripture, just like you Christians did not bother to read the scripture about what's going to happen in the last days, you are just as guilty as a previous generation of Israel who did not read the scripture. But if they would have read the scripture, they would have known. If they would have read the book of Isaiah that we just read. They didn't read it, and you Christians, you don't read it either. You only read part of it. And you reject that he's going to return all Israel back to the Holy Land. You reject that part. You don't read it. You despise the truth. All right. Interestingly, Charles T. Russell recognizes the 144,000 to be a literal number of individuals making up a spiritual Israel. That's what he says. In his book, The New Creation, Volume 6, in his Studies of the Scriptures, published in 1904, he wrote, "We have every reason to believe that the definite, fixed number of the elect, chosen anointed ones, is that several times stated in Revelation, namely 144,000. So, Charles T. Russell discounts the innumerable multitude that is with the 144,000. Folks, you must understand that Jehovah is the master of riddles. He is also the master of poetic justice. And he's very good at it. I warn each and every one of you not to indulge in this absolute madness. It is absolute foolishness. Because if you believe that only 144,000 anointed, and they must be Christians, as you say, and I have proven that Christianities are not only unbelievers. Christianity as a group are unbelievers, but they are the enemies of Yehoshua, the Moshiach, and they will call him, they will label him as their Antichrist. In fact, they already do. I have released videos months ago proving this point. All right? Now, and he says, nevertheless, does not natural Israel today merit some special favor? In the period just prior to the Lord's Day, whatever that's supposed to mean, the Lord's Day, as it is written in King James Version, it is the day of Jehovah's wrath. That is in the book of Revelation. When sincere Bible students were rediscovering many of the basic truths, whatever, it was thought that the ending of the Gentiles' times, the Jews would again enjoy a privileged standing before Jehovah. Thus, C.T. Russell's book, The Time Is at Hand, Volume 2 of Studies of the Scriptures, published in 1899 or 1889, applied Jeremiah 31, 29 through 34. No, it is Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 34, to the natural Jews, and commented, the world is witnessing the fact that Israel's punishment under the dominion of the Gentiles has been continuous since BC 607. No, it's been continuous, well, maybe 607, but the destruction of Jerusalem at 70 on the Roman calendar is where it started. It still continues, and there is no reason to expect that their national reorganization sooner than AD 1914, the limit of their 7 times. Even he couldn't get the calculation right, because there was no calculation coming to June 7 or 11, whichever one it was, 1967. There was no calculation making that a marker. But that particular day started a time clock. Seven sevens of Daniel 9, not 70 sevens, not 69 sevens, not 62 sevens, but 7 sevens of Daniel 9. The 7 sevens that all Christianity overlooks. And the reason why they overlook it is because it does not fit their narrative. But 7 sevens, 49 years from the call to rebuild Jerusalem, and I have put the proof of that many, many times in my videos. It occurred when Shlomo Goren announced, today in Jerusalem, like the Jerusalem of old, rebuild. Google that. Google those words. You'll find it. And you'll find the day. And the 49 years ended in 2016. A president was elected to get the Abraham Accords signed. The very Abraham Accords that Christianity believes is going to be the peace plan. It's not me that's saying that. The Christians did. And the peace plan was signed. What is it, almost? When was the Abraham Accord signed? Was it 2 or 3 years ago? Abraham Accords. September the 15th, 2020. 2 years ago. It wasn't me that says this is the you shall when they say peace and safety. That was not me who said that. It was you who said that was in reference to. But when this happened, you guys, you Christians, you were silent because the man who you voted for brought about the Abraham Accords. I told you that Jehovah is a master of riddles, and he is a master of poetic justice. And you guys were silent. But I know your doctrine. You can't fool me. Even one of the heads of the JWs knew the world is witness to the fact that Israel's punishment under the domination of the Gentiles continues, and still continues, that there's no reason to expect that their national reorganization sooner than 1914, the limit of 7 times whatever 200. And they try to calculate that particular time, but they can't calculate it because it can't be calculated. It seemed that the Jews would then experience a national restoration. This prospect apparently brightened in 1917 when the Balfour Declaration pledged British support for making Palestine a homeland for the Jews. And I say in quotations because that word Palestine is a curse. And so, what efforts was made by the JWs to reach the natural Jews with the Christian message, and with what result? Following the First World War, Palestine became a mandated territory under Great Britain, and the way opened up for many Jews to return to the land in 1948. Was it the majority? Was it all of them? No, it was a small minority that returned to the homeland. You see, the last days, all Israel are going to be saved. All are going to be returned to the homeland. All of them. Did this not indicate that Jews were in line for divine blessing? For so many years, JWs believed that this was so. Thus, in 1925, they published a 128-page book, Comfort of the Jews. In 1929, they released an attractive 350-page volume, Life Designed to Appeal to the Jews. Well, and whatever. But way down here. Not way down here. Hold on. Oh, yeah. It was obvious that Jewry, as a people and as a nation, was not the Israel described in Revelation 7, verses 4 through 8. This right here that I just quoted is a damn lie. It is very obvious that Jewry, as a people and as a nation, is, in fact, Israel. And all of the lost sheep of the house of Israel that were scattered, even the rejected 10 tribes, are going to be brought back. Not for Israel's sake, but for Jehovah's holy name's sake. So let me get this straight. You JWs, you want to make mention of his name, and then you want to deny the power thereof by saying that it is not in reference to Israel. You're saying that salvation is not in reference to literal Israel. And in doing so, when you make that claim, you are in fact denying his name. You are in fact blaspheming his name. He says for his holy name's sake, he's going to do this. Okay? Now, right here, Isaiah 52, verse 6. Therefore, my people shall know my name. What people? I need to keep this and create this in a new link or new tab. All right. What? 52, verse 6. So what is the context? The context is deliverance for Jerusalem. Awake, awake, put on your strength, O Zion, put on your beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, the holy city. There shall no more come unto you the uncircumcised and the unclean. Shake yourself up from the dust, and arise and sit down, Jerusalem. Loose yourself from the bands of your neck, O captive daughters of Zion. You have been sold for nothing, and now you'll be redeemed. For thus saith Adonai, Jehovah, my people went down aforetime to Egypt to sojourn there, and the Assyrian oppressed them without cause, or without ceasing. Says Jehovah, my people are taken away for nothing. Or out of favor. It should say out of favor. What does it say? What does it mean? For nothing. Okay. And those who rule over them make them to howl. Make them to scream in agony. Says Jehovah. And my name is continually, every day, blasphemed. Therefore my people shall know my name, and they shall know it in the day when I speak. And you're going to hear it. What was that particular verse that I was looking for? Isaiah 52:6. Yes. Therefore my people shall know my name, and they shall know it in the day when I speak. And it talks about get out of Babylon, that he's going to save the people of Israel. So let's go to the next one. Jeremiah 16, verse 21. Open a new tab. Therefore, I will cause them to know. I will cause them to know my hand and my might, and they shall know that my name is Jehovah. The JWs have the audacity somewhere in here. They claim that the Jews don't even recognize his name. And that is a lie. Somewhere in here. It's right in here. So they're thinking. So the JWs are thinking that that was Israel's chance when Israel became a state once again, but they forgot about the calculation that I have pointed out so many times, the 7 sevens of Daniel 9, from the call to rebuild Jerusalem, and that happened in 1967, unto Messiah the Prince. See, they could clearly discern that spiritual Israel alone had been brought unto the new covenant. Paul said, all Israel, not spiritual Israel. Romans 11:26. Unresponsive natural Israel has no part therein, neither did mankind in general. This understanding cleared the way for a brilliant flash of divine light outstanding to the annals of theocratic such nonsense. This will reveal how abundantly, as they claim, extends his mercy and loving kindness to all humans who draw close to him. Oh, you see, but the prophets say that he's going to save them first, and then they're going to believe. But Christianity does not believe that. That is one doctrine that Christianity and their master, Satan, simply cannot stand. That is their kryptonite. Christianity and Satan's kryptonite is that Jehovah is going to save Israel first, then they shall know his name, then they shall believe. But it's written so over and over and over again. It's written that way in Isaiah. It's written that way in Ezekiel. It is written that way in even the words of Paul in Romans 11, 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29. You see, if their salvation was dependent upon belief, then there's no way that Israel could be saved. But if their belief was dependent upon salvation, then Israel could be saved. And that's exactly how Israel is going to be saved. He's going to save them first, and then they're going to believe. I'm laughing at you Christians because you are unwilling. You're unwilling to believe that concept. And your unwillingness to believe that truth is going to lock the door to keep you out of the kingdom. What a shame. What a pity. Anyway, I hope you all are watching the news. I better, before I go, I better make sure. Oh, that's where there was one more thing that I wanted to talk about. So, concerning this fellow, this neighbor of mine, this JW neighbor of mine, see, it is very obvious that he is afflicted with the same, how do I say this? Affliction that most everybody else in this world is afflicted with. The accoutrements of this world. You know, a beautiful wife, nice house, all the things that Satan's world has to offer. And if he only had experienced what I experienced, my wife was taken away from me. My son removed himself from me. And I sit here alone. In the bottom of my family, my kin. The lowest of my kin. Not a great man, but a low man. And because of that, because I am alone, I am not fearful of what I might lose. Because I don't have much to lose anyway. But those who have plenty to lose are afraid to lose what they've got. So they will not take the chance. So when I said, are you going to come with me to Israel? Of course he's not going to come. Why? Remember Lot's wife. Yeah, that's right. Because he might have to leave his wife behind. And that, I have been talking about that for quite some time. How it's almost impossible to have a wife and be a believer in this world. Well, I got a phone call, or maybe, no, I called up a relative of mine and talked with him about these things. I have one relative that I can talk with him about these things, and he says, oh, his friend, who is a retired government employee, and I'm not going to mention which agency, to protect him, believes the same things that you do, Henry. And then I talked to him and I told my relative about this. My mezuzah. And he said, there it is right there if you can see it. There it is. There is the first letter of Shaddai on it. Sorry, I might have it upside down. There we go. Okay? And inside of it is a scroll. Now, this is not on parchment. And he said, oh, this fella, his wife makes sure that they have one on every doorpost in their house. I said, really? And then he told me that this fella knew like 2 or 3 years ago that these things that are happening right now. The threat of nuclear warfare was about to happen, and he said about 2 or 3 years ago he knew what was going to happen. And I said, that's interesting, because so did I. And so what I wanted to point out to you here, what is written, is a mezuzah anything special? Well, it is a marker that somebody is a Jew. Okay. But I wanted to show you what's on my mezuzah. Let's see if I can. You see it? Deuteronomy 30. So what I want y'all to do is go to Deuteronomy 30, and I want you to read it. This is your homework for today. Okay? Now, I know they say that the Torah is supposed to be in that mezuzah. I know. But the Torah convicted Israel as sinners. In my mezuzah, the one that I have on my doorpost, I have Deuteronomy 30. Now go read it. And it's going to happen when the Gentiles end themselves. And you can read the news just as plain as day that the Gentiles are about to end themselves.